down, but we've been here all these years. We've had our share of good times, we've had our share of tears. We know that life's not easy, we've fought hard all our lives. We've always smiled at trouble, and we never ducked no strife. Now that's the way we're made around here, that's the way we tick. If anyone tries to take us on, well, hell, then do we kick. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest. We battle hard, we battle strong, where's St. George, we battle on. And if you wanna beat us, you better be better than the best. There was a time, couldn't say we didn't fight, but the games just went the other way, with victory in sight.
But we remember winning, we remember when we beat them all for 11 straight years, and we're gonna do it again.
There's nothing we can't handle, there's nothing we can't do, and it's up to every one of us to power the Saints on through. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest. We battle hard, we battle strong, where's St. George, we battle on. And if you want to beat us, you better be better than the best. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest. We battle hard, we battle strong, where's St. George, we battle on. And if you want to beat us, you better be better than the best. Yes, when you take the Saints on, you better be better than the best. When you're up against St. George, you better be better than the best.
And there's a sliding try to King, which puts St. George in front, 8 points to 3.
Well, the winning of games is always difficult. You took every game as they came along, and each grand final, of course, was just treated as a separate grand final. There was no thought of how many had won before that. It was just get out there and win it the best way you could. I think this photograph of Arthur Summons and myself typifies what rugby league is all about after the hard-fought battle is over.
Well, when you talk about giants amongst footballers, Norm was the giant. His dedication and his attitude towards the players, his soft, mild manner until he got on the football field, then he could turn into a monster. The only man I've seen that could carry a football in one hand and stretch an arm out 6 miles and score a try. 80-foot-long strides. What could you say about the guy? But to me, he was such a tremendous gentleman and a tremendous inspiration to us all, and I'm very proud to have played with the big fella.
After winning the first 3 premierships, we realised that with the money we had, that we looked at where we had weaknesses with a player. We went out and bought a player to replace him, the best player that we could possibly buy. In some cases, we bought players who were very good players, and rather than let them go to another club.
Well, the whole team were great, but there were players who were exceptional. Gasnier, he was such a quick man. He was so deceptive, and he could run same speed, I think, on both water surface field or a hard ground or whatever you put up against Gasnier. He just sort of had that acceleration.
In the 11 years that St. George was winning the premiership, practically every member of the St. George community went at some time or other to see the St. George football team play. It included men, women and kids. My own 3 kids, indeed, went practically every Saturday or Sunday to the football. They went along with all their mates. Now, they as adults continue to be firm and loyal St. George supporters.
My father used to come from Inverell in the mid-50s to the 60s to the Sydney Cricket Ground to see St. George play nearly every Saturday. And there used to be some great games here, great memories, great players, Langlands, Raper, Proven.
Well, the St George supporters were extremely important. We were used to playing to a packed house almost all the time. We had a great following of supporters. And with South Sydney and St George, we always had big crowds. And it's nothing worse than going to a ground and playing when there's nobody there.
I come every week. I go watch the game almost every week. Sometimes I miss through the social function, you know. But always I watch them. At least I watch 20 games a year. And I have watched them last 15 years, like I say.
I think he's a real red and white man, and I feel that's been bred into them over the years that we've played, and I think it will exist until the day of dot, as you might call it.
It is a great atmosphere here, although it is really when they were in the grand finals, in the 11 grand finals that they played in, 11 straight grand finals. Well, it'll never ever be done again. I mean, I know, South Sydney had a good run there with premierships, but I mean, St George having 11 straight, I mean, that'll never ever be broken again. Never.
St George will probably have one of the greatest followings in the country areas. When I go to the country with other players, and we always play in the country, we have a tremendous following. And I think it's one of the great things about St George is the support is so widespread. It's not just confined to the Cogra and surrounding districts. It's all over the state and all over Australia.
I follow St George because there's a lot of prestige within the club and a lot of tradition to follow.
Well, yes, St George supporters are a little bit different to other supporters. They all wear red and white.
As their theme song is, when you're up there with St George, you're up there with the best.
One of the reasons for Saints' success, particularly over those 11 great years, was the administration. We've had some great administrators in the past, and we had a wonderful understanding between players and officials. And I go back to the late Frank Facer and guys like Alex Mackey and Laurie Dowse, these fellas. A lot of experience, and you know, Alex Mackey has been at the head for a long, long time, and he's even with the senior rugby league. He's done a marvellous job, and as I said, I think it was certainly one of the reasons for Saints' success was this top administration.
In 1956, Frank Facer was appointed secretary of the club, a position which he held for many years right up till 1977. Under Facer's control, the club had its glorious 11 premiership years. And during this period, crowds were up, and we built up we did have some very, very fine footballers. Possibly two greatest was Reg Gasnier and John Raper.
Billy Smith, relentless Billy Smith, how he used to be a powerhouse. I used to hate him at training, as a matter of fact, because he'd sit behind Norm Provan running around the laps of the oval and be breathing down our neck. Then all of a sudden, when we thought we had him, he'd come sprinting past us, and we thought that this little guy here couldn't match us out there on the training paddock himself. But he had a heart as big as himself, and he will be remembered as one of the not only the great St George players, but one of the great halfbacks of all time. And I think that the man that I admire most of all in this club and has helped this club so very much was the great Norm Provan. His attitude on and off the football field was a credit to himself and his family. He never asked any of us to do what he wouldn't do himself. And I'm talking about the worst part of rugby league. I think it's the training part. No one likes training. The majority of players don't like training, really. But Provan showed the way all the time. He never shirked his duty or his exercises on the football field. And when he got out there, he was just living St George. And some of the courageous things, I've seen him cut up, I've seen him belted, I've seen him running on half a leg out there, but he would never leave the football field. And he is definitely probably the greatest footballer that I've ever played with or ever seen.
Well, the greatest win to me was probably those difficult ones earlier in the reign where we lost players and they didn't have the replacement rule. We lost Merv Lees in the first 10 minutes in 56, and we had to play a man short right through the grand final. And Billy Wilson went out into the centres. We still managed to win that. That was our first of our run. We had other difficult games like that where we lost players.
Of all the 11 premierships that St George won, I consider the best side of them all was the 1959 side. That side went through the premiership competition without losing a match, a record which still reigns in the New South Wales Rugby League as one of the great sides. Out of that side, there was 7 of those players who went to England with the Australian side at the end of the season.
Well, St George have been very lucky over the years, and my first international experience was in 1959 to England and France, and we produced 7 representatives in those days. Blokes like Johnny Raper, Billy Wilson, Johnny Riley, Eddie Lumsden, Bobby Bugden, Popper Clay. Now we, as I said, 7 internationals out of 26. It was quite an achievement. In fact, I think it was a record at the time.
Notwithstanding the fact that they lost 7 players, at the end of that competition they ran a knockout competition, and St George won the knockout competition with 7 of their players away. The balance of the team then toured New Zealand, and in a 4-match invitation period in New Zealand, they also won.
We know that St George during this period had great administration, they had great players, but one of the most contributing factors to their success was their attitude. Now, the attitude of the players during that time was handed down from player to player and from year to year, and you could not afford to let your previous player down by adopting any other attitude, and we carried that with us all the time. We were so proud of our record, and the attitude of everybody contributed to this wonderful record. Yes. I've often been asked who are the greatest players I've played with in St George during their reign, and I feel I shouldn't answer that by just naming half a dozen or even a dozen players, because in those years there was a lot of players came through to enable us to win those 11 premierships, and before that again. So they were all great players, and each one contributed their own amount to that great record.
We bought very well, but we were not the big spenders in the late 50s and early 60s. Western suburbs were known as the money spenders at that time.
They asked me to come to the club. I remember Glenn Price, after a game up here at Codger Oval, where I'm sitting right now, that he said to me, he said, "How would you like to play with that pack of forwards?" I said, "I'd love to." He said, "We'll be able to see you by the end of the season." And I did come to St George in 1959. It was a hard decision to make, to come here to St George, because of the great many players that they did have in the side and where I was going to be put as far as a player was concerned. Because
Well, Johnny Raper is one of the game's great characters, and he's certainly the best footballer I ever played with or against. He was an incredible footballer. He was a great fitness fanatic. He's also his anticipation. We developed a tremendous understanding with each other. And
goes down, Summers works the scrum, in goes the ball, and the nice scissors movement being put on here. There's Raper going nicely downfield, shoots it away this time to Johnny King.
at times, if I was making a break, I didn't have to look for John, because he did support the play, and he was incredible. He could read the game well. His anticipation was superb, and as I said, he's one of the greatest football, if not the greatest footballer I've ever seen.
Western Suburbs had defeated us 3 times in the mud, and that was a big problem for our coach coming into the grand final, how we were going to get on top of a side that had beaten us 3 times already. And it was a big dramatic day for us, and West were very confident they could beat us, and we had to change a few tactics. We adopted a bit of a kicking game against West, and we just happened to get on top in the end, and we were very glad to beat them in the end. We were all trying very hard, and I was as nervous as anything because my son was born that day, and to have a son born and win your first grand final in one day and play in the conditions that we did was quite memorable. And to see Eddie Lumsden come off pure as silk on the wing, he never used to get dirty, old gum leaves, and that was a marvellous thing for us when Eddie used to stay white, but it was a very memorable occasion for all of us.
And there's Dennis Meany underneath the ball for Western Suburbs, and the rain beating down as the match goes the ball wide. It goes down the blind side of play. The ball is loose on the ground, and it looks like St George have got it. It's Raper who plays the ball back. Proven gets it wide to Rasmussen, on to Ryan, and Ryan's almost through the West defence. There's part of the huge crowd, just on 70,000. We're holding the players apart there as he's calling for the 3-yard rule. Ryan senses an opening and goes very hard for the try line, but a great tackle by Parrish pulls him down. Ball is played back to Raper. Raper gives it out to Proven, who decides to try and barge over on his own, but he's forced back by the grim defence of Western Suburbs. Ball goes back to St George, out a long pass to Pollard. Pollard gives to Gasnier. Gasnier tries to get the ball to King. He does so too, and King is tackled. They're short of the west line now, an attacking position as they go across field. Raper shoots it wide again, down the centre of the game.
It was a horrendous day. It was pouring rain. It was just a quagmire out there in the middle of the field. It didn't matter which way you ran because no one had any advantage at all. There was only one way out there, and that particular day that was to run straight. And there was Kelly and O'Shea waiting for you to just give it to you all the time. And actually that year, that's the year that they beat us 3 times, and that's the year that we won the grand final. It just shows the fighting spirit of St George, that they never gave in. I remember Winston Churchill said that, never give in, never give in, never give in. And they didn't give in, and we won that grand final by 8 points to 3. It's probably one of the most memorable games I've played in, and it was great to see Norm Provan and Arthur Summons be recognised by the Winfield Trophy.
Raper signalling, trying to cover every possible position, and just look at that. Shocking conditions. It's won by West, and down they go in a dying effort to win the match, and a beautiful in pass, but it's put on the ground. Impossible to hold, and there's the end of the game from that knock on. With the players shaking hands, some stopping gear of the players coming up. Look at Norm Provan, just completely covered in mud, being chaired to the sideline by his teammates, being their captain coach, and winning the 8th premiership for St George. It's certainly been a grand one, and will be a record that'll be hard to beat for many, many years to come. There's Gasnier just pulling on a jersey and wincing in pain as Arnold Spear, the Deputy Chairman of the Rugby League, presents the trophy to Norm Provan, that giant front row forward who's done yeoman service to the game. And there are the players running around the ground. You see they're all St George players, although some have swapped jerseys with West one on. They're going right around, and a huge crowd of 70,000 stayed right to the finish to see this team run around with their covered.
Significant things about that game was the disputed try of Johnny King's, where he was tackled out, or they said he was tackled out, and he got up and ran on and scored the winning try. Johnny disputes that he went out, and I believe Johnny.
But Billy, they played him at halfback and at centre. Most of the time, the grand finals, he used to come out and be my centre partner with Georgie Evans going in at halfback. But Bill, a great competitor. In fact, Norm Provan held the record for St George for many, many years. Sticks played 10 straight premierships. He had the record on 283 games, but Billy knocked it over with 297, and that's a fantastic record indeed. A lot of knocks, a lot of ups and downs, but Bill, a great footballer.
The club directors don't think this is real funny, but when we went to the vineyards with our new sponsors, Penfolds, the bus driver happened to just leave the bus with the keys in it, and I took off in the bus and went up around the back and parked it behind a tree. And as I'm walking down the hill, I see these swimming pools, so I just jump in, clothes and all, and stagger around the corner, half pissed as I was at the time, and said, I'll just put the bus into the creek. And all of a sudden, they got me by the throat, and they thought it was fair dinkum, and they all sent me home and wanted to kill me. And what about our new sponsors? But at the time, I thought it was pretty funny, and it didn't go over like a good joke I thought it would, but we're all friends over it now, and I thought it was a bit of fun at the time. And
Billy Smith, he was a great halfback, and I think Billy and myself had the best understanding as a half and a fullback maybe that the club has ever had. We just really knew one another's play.
When Graham came up from the south coast, Graham Langlands, as we affectionately called him Chang, Graham and I had just both signed a new contract with St George, and we just happened to bump into each other at the Leeds Club, and we just sort of struck it up straight away, and we got into a little bit of trouble here and there on the way through, but we developed into a very good partnership on the field, and we had a thing going that if I ran with the ball, Graham would follow me, and I just happened to know he was there all the time, and I could just throw it over my head if I had to, and Graham would pick it up and score a try, or he'd do the same to me and kick through and I'd score a try. So we were like twins in a way, but a lot of people think we had a bit more mischief off the field than on the field, but that could be true, I think. I'm not sure about that now, but...
Well, Chang was another great footballer, there's no doubt about that. He had a great sidestep, acceleration, he could read the game well. In fact, I played with him in the centre in St George and Australia, and I quite enjoyed playing with him because he was a great fullback, as we all know. But
he had that uncanny anticipation to chime into the attack at the right time.
There's downfield, has Gasnier alongside of him, cuts out Gasnier with a pass going out to Smith, from Smith to King, and look at King going helter-skelter to the line, and Johnny King has gone in to score a great St George try.
There was an electrifying player. I was with St George when he did come there, and I remember him playing in the lower grades, and he played fullback when I saw him, and he just carved the side up. And I said to Frank Baser, I said, Frank, you've got to get this fellow into our side. He's devastating. And from that day onwards, Gaz never let me down, because I played with him a great many occasions. He was fast, he was elusive, he was deceptive. We often said that he had so many different gears that he'd change from first to second, third, fourth. He could just keep going whenever he wanted to. The players seemed to be upon him, and then all of a sudden Gaz would change into another gear and leave them standing in such a way that they were grasping thin air. And it's a funny thing about Gaz, we never knew how fast he really was, because he wasn't the greatest trainer, Gaz, especially the sprints and that sort of thing. I don't think he wanted anyone to know how fast he really was. He'd just pull the stops off him out when he wanted to.
With Gaz, I was lucky enough to play alongside of him in quite a few test matches, and Gaz was never a selfish player. He always tried to put you through a gap, and when he wanted to go, he had such terrific turn of speed, and as soon as he threw the head back, you knew that it just shut the gate. There was a try looming up.
I remember he played against Harry Wells one day and scored 3 tries against him. They expected Harry to run over the top of Gasnier, as big and tough as he was, but Gasnier gave him a football lesson. And that's the way I like to remember is Gasnier. That at any time that they threw the challenge to Gasnier, Gasnier came up to that challenge like the true champion that he is.
Well, I had the pleasure of playing in 6 grand finals. I'll never forget the 63 era, particularly when in the mud. But in 1965, when we played South Sydney, that was a game that really sticks in the mind. There was 78,000 people at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The atmosphere was really incredible, and of course it was a record, and the way the cricket ground is these days, they'll never break that record. But South Sydney had a great side, a young team. The majority of the forwards went on to play for Australia, and they really gave us some stick. They'd beaten us throughout the year, and the 78,000 people, the majority of them I feel, were there to see Saints go down. It wasn't to be, but gee, it was a very, very hard game, and one I'll never forget.
We played a very young, fit, up-and-coming South Sydney side with Ron Coote, John Sattler, John O'Neill, and they come out with every guns firing. They wanted to take our title off us, and we did very well to get on top of these young lads who were at their prime, and we were just on the verge of going over the hill, you could have said, and we ended up winning 12-9, and I put that down as one of our finest efforts in the grand finals.
It's been said also that they even altered the rules of rugby league from the unlimited tackle rule to the limited tackle rule to stop St George's great run of wins. But my personal opinion is that it was instigated by Bill Fallowfield from the English League to bring the crowds back to the game in England, which was having a very bad time around about that period.
From Armstrong to Raper. Raper gets it out to Clay, and running off Clay is Elton Rasmussen. Rasmussen sends the ball back to Provan, who was travelling behind him to pick up the ball. Provan looks for support, gets it to the pass going out to Lumsden. Lumsden's bowled over on the far side, very close to the sideline as play. And St George's Kevin Ryan clears the ruck with a pass going out to Raper to Evans. Evans on the halfway mark, steps away from Danzy, but the Balmain cover defence was there to bring him down by Clothier.
So ultimately, when the club lost the premiership in 1977, in one way, it was a relief. We found that each match we played, every side wanted to beat us, even the weakest of sides. And it became very, very difficult for the officials.
Right, well, the St George era was not just confined to those 11 years. I had the privilege of going back further than that and playing in the early years with great players like Noel the Count Mulligan, Dutchy Holland, Frank Facer, Ron Roberts, Johnny Hawke, Noel Pitting, and 2 great centres, Matt McCoy and Doug McRitchie. They were all great players and as good as anyone else that ever played for St George.
Well, I was the foundation treasurer in 1952, and in 1956 I took over from Baden Wales and continued in that position until 1977 when I retired. But I was only one of many, many people that put many, many hours and time into this great club. The Baden-Wyles, late Baden-Wyles I've mentioned, the late Tiger Black, the late Frank Scotton, Frank Facer and Clem Madden. Frank Facer was a great person. He probably had more to do with our 11 years in succession winning the competition than any person in the club.
I became associated with the St George Club in 1938 as a reserve grade secretary. And though the club was formed in 1921, they had not won a premiership. 1941 was the year in which St George won their first premiership. And 1941, of course, the war was on. And that grand final gave the selectors and the officials a lot of worries because they had to get the players leave to play in the final. A couple of them had to come interstate. One particular player, Lieutenant Gordon Hart, was doing a commando course in Melbourne, and he was flown down on the Saturday morning, and he played in the afternoon and flew back to Melbourne that afternoon on special leave. Possibly he did in one day more training than he'd done down in Victoria all the week for the commando training. Key players that played in 1941, and all of whom was in the army, were Albie McAndrew, Herm Gilbert, Jack Gilbert and Gordon Hart. They'd previously played with New South Wales in 1940 and 39. I returned to the club after the war as a committeeman. In 1954 where I was appointed president. And on being appointed president, I then set out on a program of improving the standard of play. My first job was to get selectors, and I chose on that occasion two men who had played with the club for many years and who, in my opinion, were two of the best judges of footballers in Sydney. And I speak firstly of Frank Facer and Len Kelly.
St George has always had top management, especially in Frank Facer. I remember one incident that he told me that he always liked to keep St George in the paper, and so he'd bring up both papers or the four papers and just say to them, well, I don't think Reg Gasnier can play this weekend, and there'd be probably nothing wrong with him, but he'd say this just to keep St George in the limelight and for them to be in the paper all the time.
The club's had a long list of internationals. I wouldn't like to compare them over the years, but probably 1959 was our greatest year when we had 7 Kangaroos on that tour.
Later on we had blokes like Ian Walsh and Johnny Raper again, and then Billy Smith and Graham Langlands and late Johnny King in '67. So St George produced some very fine internationals.
International football is a very high standard of football. I've played in easy ones and I played in some real hard ones, and even the easy ones were hard.
And I'll never forget the 1967 test match there, the third test. It was actually snowing. The ground was frozen, and I was on the sideline. I was captain coach in that particular year, and it was freezing. But the boys, as they were playing on a ground like concrete, it was also actually snowing. It was incredible conditions.
Particular experience that you're going overseas, that's the big thing that you find when you do come back to Australia. You don't think when you make the international out here in Australia, you don't think you can learn any more about the game. And when you get overseas and then come back after that particular tour, you realise that this is a game where you never stop learning. And I try and impress upon players that particular saying that you never stop learning in this game of rugby league, and I'm still learning about the game. And that was only from the experience that they got playing against the Englishmen, and then we go and play the Frenchman, an entirely different sort of a footballer, a player who was always temperamental. Another side that's greatly assisted by refereeing decisions, a player that they don't use fisticuffs, they just kick you over there, and decisions that, well, you wouldn't believe it if I told you some of the decisions that have been made against me over there. A very fast type of footballer, the Frenchman, always used to use the ball, didn't used to use the physical contact more than anything, very low tackling sort of a player. And putting both of these players together, I think has been the foundation when we got back here to Australia of a lot of teams here in Australia today. I think that the strength has come from the English, and the speed and the low tackling has come from the Frenchmen themselves, and Australia has been able to grasp that, and with the physical outlook towards the game, that's what's putting us so far ahead of the world today, the domination period.
We've seen recently now in '86 the results of that limited tackle, I think, being played at the way it was meant to be played. And it's taken 20 years for the limited tackle rule really to find its feet. And the '86 Kangaroos in England have shown us just how the limited tackle rule should be played.
But Frank Facey used to say you could take the whole team, because he realised that the experience that was gained in these city country games, New South Wales and international games, were of great benefit to our own side itself. And we felt the benefit when we'd come back after even a hard game on the Saturday, and we would play with players that had a rest. We felt that when the going got tough, those players took over from us and give us a bit of a hand. That was the greatness of St George itself. I must say this about St George players when they were there. You'd heard comments about people saying, oh, well, they keep it amongst themselves, and this was dead set not true. The St George players realised, like, you know, the good players from the other sides, that they could benefit as much as anyone else by assisting those players to mould into the team itself. And I've got give a lot of credit to a lot of sides that I've played with.
It was a good experience for me to go over there. I was lucky enough to have 3 trips with the Kangaroo sides over there, but the conditions over there, it is very cold, and a few times there we were fogged out, couldn't play, and other times I remember it was like playing on cement, like as far as the grounds went frozen. But football is it's helped me a hell of a lot to see the world, and that was just a great experience for me to make the sides.
It's not something you can put in words. It's a very private thing, and it's something a player, when he first starts playing rugby league, always wants to do. Not many people achieve that goal, but it's a tremendous honour.
1977 was a very good year for the club. We hadn't won the first grade premiership for 11 years, and Harry Bath came back, who was a former great player with the clubs in that 11-year reign. And we had a lot of young players, and with Harry's knowledge of the game and his dedication,
and he taught me a great deal, particularly the long pass from the rucks, cutting out the half of the 5/8 to the centre. He was even throwing long passes to myself. The particular year I played, I scored a lot of tries from Harry Bath passes. His experience certainly helped us. I think that went on later on in 77 and 79. It was obvious that Harry had a lot to do with the young blokes there. He really got them up, and they won the competition. As I said, a great footballer himself and a great technical man.
The first year of the club was 1977. Actually, I was recruited by Frank Facer. I was the last player recruited before he passed on. We had a young side in 77, coached by Harry Bath, of course, and we moulded into great mates, which helped our on-field activities.
That look forward. The Jenkins got it, and he's over the post. Well, there's Harry Bath jumping to his feet and happy about it underneath the post. 5-0. Let's see it again. I've got Sillies. Edge. Bailey. The dummy. Kicks over the top. Price nearly gets to it. Stones kicked it through. They're still lying free. They're still lying free. It could be another try. He's got it a yard from the line.
It's a penalty try, is it? I think it is.
He's awarded a penalty try.
The full-time hooter's gone.
Full-time hooter going in the background. Watch the ruling now. Let's see that again. So the try will be awarded, I feel, to Bailey. And a penalty try with a kick at goal from Goodwin indirectly in front. And there is the hooter going in the background for the 1977 Premiers. The St George Penfold side have done it, and they've done it easily. 22 points to 0.
1979, I was captain that year, and we won the grand final, which was a tremendous thrill for me. and I received great support from the players that year and all the other years.
1979 was a year after 78 where we had a very poor year, whether it was a letdown from winning the competition in 77 or whether we never brought enough new players into the club for 1979. But we brought Graham Wynne, Steve Morris, Brian Johnson into the club, and we were very strong, and we were much stronger in 79 than we were in 77, and I thought we probably could go on and win a few competitions in a row, but that wasn't to be so.
I love Brian Johnson. He's the best. I think so, I really do.
Right. Craig Young's a great front rower. He's very, very talented. He motivates the rest of the players. He's one of those people that you look up to and respect. He usually leads by example, and one of those fellas that you'll never forget.
Yeah, 1985 was a tremendous year. We had 3 sides in the grand final. I remember the grand final day watching the 3rd grade, and they got up quite convincingly. In the 2nd grade, we're doing a bit tough. And they come from behind, snatched victory in the last minute or so. In our game, of course, there was only 1 point in it. We were very confident before the game. We had a good win over Canterbury in the semi-final, and it wasn't to be. If we would have won, it would have been the first time in the history of the league that a club would have won 3 grand finals on that particular day.
They have to devote tremendous number of hours to gymnasium work, to football training, to studying videos and techniques, and then they have to get out onto the football field on the Saturday or the Sunday, and they're expected to win the game.
It's been a long time between drinks, but I've always been a St George man. 25 years, but still being a St George man, and a great deal of pleasure over the last couple of years by being asked by Roy Masters and the officials themselves to become a little bit more active with the players, to go into the dressing room beforehand and get the smell of that liniment, to be able to sort of get the hair in the back of your neck raised up again from the excitement of what was going to occur and following the after they ran out the football field.
When I first came to the club, the training sessions, especially the pre-season, would consist of a long run, go back, have a shower all together, and then sort of go your own ways. Today the training's very specialised. We have special speed training sessions, weight sessions, stamina sessions, and flexibility sessions, which are taken by different people. They're very, very intense, and everybody sort of has to train to their own maximums.
The current training methods, that's probably been the most significant difference since I've been playing rugby league, especially up in Sydney. You've got to do something every day. Plus we start training for the next season around about October, and play a lot of trial games, of course. And during the season, it's a lot of time spent on training. Motivation, that comes back to yourself, I think. Players need to be motivated by someone else, or they're missing something. I think you've got to set your goals in life, and one of them has got to be self-motivated. And
all of the teams in the competition today are very even. The playing staff are even. The coaches are all #1 coaches, and the physical condition of all those players is very very close to each other. So on the day, the bounce of the ball, a little bit of luck, or even a referee's decision can cost you a match.
St George over the years, we've always had a great tradition at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Playing the home and away games suits us. As I said, our players seem to lift themselves when we do play the Sydney Cricket Ground, and I look forward to it all the time.
It's great to play with a club like St George, the tradition that is with the club, the past great players, and of course the unconquering record.
Putting on that red and white jumper was a terrific feeling. Because they had so many good players there, it was more or less nearly an Australian side when I first came up there, and the experience, it was unbelievable, and if I had my time over again, I'd play another 15 years with them.
Certainly the club has got a great future in rugby league. The players, young players have been here for a couple of years, and I know from their on the field activities and of course their training, which has been tremendous. They've certainly got the right attitude to get St George back to winning first grade premierships, I've got no doubt that the future is very good for St George, and especially if the attitude and the players' willingness to learn continues.
Standing around too much in attack. I want the forwards to go bang, bang, bang. I want a back line out there ready to go. The biggest thing that you're doing is when we're attacking, you're all standing over the bloody heap. All your boys are going to get in there and work. That's what you do. You all have to do what?
That's been split up.
Michael Beattie is an excellent player.
We hope the season augurs well for you wonderful supporters of our club. All together we have a lot of notable people here today. We have the president of St George Football Club and his dear wife Margaret, and I would like to give them a fond welcome. Jim Williams and all the supporters from Penfolds, we say to you, Jim, red and white, and we hope that the wine industry goes as well as our football club will this year. And we give you a welcome. And the two girls behind the scenes that do everything to make these things possible for John Fleming and Barry Rogers, I give welcome to Joanne.
Is anybody in the black tie?
Yeah, I got some more.
Before we go out, we've got to go from the ball. That 7-inch goes to the ball.
Just a reminder to St George supporters that the game here at the Sydney Cricket Ground this coming Friday night between the eastern suburbs and St George.
You're the second man winning?
Right.
Staggered runner offing, okay? Staggered runner offing. What about if we call double right, Bud? Which side does the ball go?
Left.
No, it does not. Double right, the ball goes right.
Wait, the runs come down the right. The second one you're going to think.
Come down the right. Ends up on the left. It still go, yeah. It ends up going left, but if a double right's called, the first runner's on the right, the second runner's on the right, peels across to the left and picks up a third runner on the left. Keep talking. Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Right.
Everybody ready? Okay, let's all go outside. You right, Bronco?
Now we've been up and we've been down, but we've been here all these years. We've had our share of good times, we've had our share of tears. We know that life's not easy, we've fought hard all our lives. We've always smiled at trouble, and we never ducked no strife. Now that's the way we're made around here, that's the way we tick. If anyone tries to take us on, well, hell, then do we kick. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest. We battle hard, we battle strong, where's St George, we battle on. And if you want to beat us, you better be better than the best. There was a time, couldn't say we didn't fight, but the games just went the other way, with victory in sight. But we remember winning, we remember when we beat them all for 11 straight years, and we're gonna do it again. There's nothing we can't handle, there's nothing we can't do, and it's up to every one of us to power the Saints on through. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest. We battle hard, we battle strong, where's St George, we battle on. And if you want to beat us, you better be better than the best. We battle hard, we battle strong, and there's nothing we ain't won. So when you're up against us, you better be better than the rest.
than the best.
And so the result of today's game, St George 22 defeated Western Suburbs 0.